technically under the law, if you're in the country unlawfully, you're supposed to register. Obviously, no one does, but they're going to start enforcing that law and prosecuting people. These aren't people with criminal history, right? These people that are just here, they don't have status, and because they haven't registered under the law, well, they're going to be prosecuted. And
Big Boys neighborhood, beautiful day in the neighborhood, ladies and gentlemen. West Coast trial lawyers. That's West Coast.
West Coast
trial lawyers, my man.
right.
Hey, it's always good. And I'm going to tell you, Neama, we're going to really use and abuse you today.
let's do it, man.
All right, Neama Rahmani is in the neighborhood, man. And not only do we talk about like West Coast trial lawyers, but there's just so many things that you are so privy to. And when you come into the neighborhood, we ask you everything that doesn't just have to do with, oh, we can take care of your case. I'm talking about you've been on every news outlet. You had a chance to speak to so many people, so many different platforms. So when you come into the neighborhood, we love to abuse you with free legal advice or just what's going on today.
That's what I'm here for, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said that. I don't know where to start, but tariffs. Let's start at tariffs.
man.
All righty, we recently saw there's a 90-day hold on the tariffs, aside from China. And now China is holding back and standing ground, saying that they'll hold a 125% tariff, you know. And of course, Trump and the administration are holding down on, our tariffs. Can you explain what a tariff means? Because I don't think people understand how this is coming back to us.
A tariff is a tax on goods imported into the country. And normally, Congress has the power to tax and spend. This is in the Constitution. But there are some laws that give the president the power to impose tariffs when there's a national emergency. And that's what Trump is saying here. He said there's a national emergency, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's a trade deficit, which is the difference between what we import in as Americans versus what we export out to other countries. He's saying because there's this national emergency, I can impose these tariffs. Now, normally, Congress would say, no, there isn't a national emergency. You can't do this. But Congress right now is, of course, controlled by the Republicans.
Yes.
So they're not going to stop Trump, and that's why he can pretty much do whatever he wants.
Yeah, it's my party and I can cry if I want to.
Yeah.
Right?
Very simple. Straight.
And so when we think about, people say, oh, no, they're going to pay to come in and they're going to pay this. And I'm like, no, bro, I said it's just going to get rolled over to us.
Oh, no question. The cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. So obviously, look, we import a lot of goods from a lot of other countries. The clothes we're wearing, our electronics, right? They're made overseas. But if there's a 50%, 25%, 10% tariff on it, that's going to be passed on to us.
Man.
These corporations aren't going to eat that cost. No way.
And if it stands the way it stands, and with Apple, oh, it's an American company, but the phones are pretty much made out of the country.
The parts.
Yeah, man, the parts and stuff. So that means that right now, man, 125% tariff on an iPhone, we pay about $72,000 for an iPhone. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And that's if you didn't go with the Pro Max. But yeah, and also deportation. We've had a lot of conversation recently with deportation, even in the neighborhood. Literally, there's people that work here. I don't want to start putting the camera on them too. You know what I'm saying? So Wacko, make sure you don't put no one on camera. No, but there's people that's nervous about walking outside because we're seeing people literally being on their way to work or, going to a university. And that's a whole different thing about, canceling the visas and everything. The deportations, how do you feel about where this is at and is it extreme to you?
Big, I don't like it. It is extreme. It's a problem, and people are rightfully afraid. Here's the issue we're dealing with right now with Trump. Not only are they enforcing immigration laws, what they're trying to do is use two different laws to remove and deport people without them even seeing an immigration judge. And that's a big deal. So
we're looking at due process like,
Yeah. So the issue is, imagine, a police officer being the judge, jury, and executioner. You're arrested, you go straight to jail. That's what's happening here, where you have Border Patrol, you have Customs and Border Protections officers. They're removing people without them seeing an immigration judge. And there's two laws that they're using to do that. The one everyone's talking about is the Alien Enemies Act. And this is a law that's really, we're going back in time, U.S. history. It's only been used 3 times in American history. The War of 1812, World War I, World War II. And World War II, it was used for the Japanese internment camp. So this is really like a problematic law, and it's really been used in really one of the darker moments of American history. But the law says if we're at war with a country or if there's an invasion, we can remove citizens of that country without that due process, without them seeing a judge and saying, hey, I'm not a criminal. I want to claim asylum. And that's what's happening here with respect to people from Venezuela, for instance.
Right. And I noticed as well with the Salvadorian gentleman, how they deported him, of course, without due process. And now they're asking, they want the Supreme Court to facilitate him coming back home. And we're starting to see this a lot. I was looking at this one where there's a gentleman in Chicago on his way to work. Literally, his neighbor had to try to stop them from deporting him. Ani's nervous. You know what I'm saying?
God.
She just recently came back from Armenia.
And everybody was telling me, even online, when I go and I read it, they're like, make sure you turn your phone off. Make sure you don't search anything crazy about Trump, because at the border, they'll take your phone. And if they see something, is that true?
Like the U.S.
Yeah,
border?
that's absolutely.
Yeah, the U.S. border.
my
Yeah,
God.
so let me tell you, there is an exception at the border. So there's a difference between U.S. citizens and non-U.S. citizens. So let me talk about U.S. citizens first. At the border, they can confiscate your phone. Now,
Right.
you don't have to give them the password. You don't have to unlock it. You don't have to do any of that if you're a U.S. citizen.
They could just take mine and point it at my face, and it's open.
But, they have to let you into the country. They can ask questions. You're a U.S. citizen. You have an absolute right to be here. So you can be detained for a reasonable period of time. They can take your phone, but you can be let in. For non-U.S. citizens, if you don't unlock that phone, if you don't show customs the contents, they can actually deny you entry into the country. So you got to be very careful what you have in your phone if you're not a U.S. citizen. If you plan on leaving and coming back to the country, this is a big, big deal. You have a lot less, people don't know this, you have a lot less protection at the border. So, for instance, you can be strip searched at the border, okay, if they think you're a body carrier and you have drugs. That can't happen if you're just pulled over in the streets of LA, right? So you got to be very careful at the border. And when it comes to the phones, even if you're a U.S. citizen, you can have your phone confiscated without a warrant.
My thing is this, man, because I have family who are U.S. citizens, right? Like my mom and my dad. And they go to Mexico to travel a lot to visit family because they're retired now. You know what I mean? They want to go with family. And they've been there for a couple months. They're not. My mom can speak English. My dad really can't speak hardly in English. So now it scares me when they come back and go through that border. Like, they're American citizens, but still, I'm afraid they're going to judge them right off the bat because of either the language that they can't really speak well, English, or just the way they look. You know what I mean? So that's where
I get it. I mean, even U.S. citizens, the stuff that you see coming out of this administration, it's pretty scary. They want to potentially roll back birthright citizenship. I don't know if you heard that. So
that's great.
Which would be crazy. So right now, anyone born in the United States, you're automatically a U.S. citizen. But what people want to do is say, listen, if your parents are undocumented, you're brought here, your parents came here unlawfully. If they have a child here, that person is not automatically a citizen. And I think the argument is, look, there's a lot of birth tourism, people coming here from other countries, and anchor babies and stuff. But that's an issue. There's also, and it's rarely been used before, but they're talking about it more and more, and that's the process of denaturalization. This is what denaturalization is. If you're a naturalized U.S. citizen, but you weren't honest in your application, we're going to go back, we're going to denaturalize you, we're going to revoke your U.S. citizenship, then you revert to what you were before, and then you're going to be deported. Again, rarely used to happen before, but these are some of the things that we're talking about now, even when it comes to U.S. citizens.
And there's just some things we haven't seen in our lifetime that we've seen in like the last almost 4 months.
Yeah, that's
Which is
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, we keep saying unprecedented, but this is all like every
man.
day there's something like, man, I've never heard of anything like this before.
Even with the new thing about the IRS allowing, I guess, who is it? Is it Homeland Security to access immigrants or non-citizens their taxes and their information, which technically for the longest they weren't able to give that to the government, right?
Yeah, and then the head of the IRS basically resigned in protest. And
man.
Look, there's a lot of laws that are in the books that really haven't been enforced or haven't been used. They're really kind of dusting off those law books. But I'm telling you, one of them that you're probably going to see, and we'll talk about it the next time I'm here, is technically under the law, if you're in the country unlawfully, you're supposed to register. Obviously, no one does, but they're going to start enforcing that law and prosecuting people. These aren't people with criminal history, right? These people that are just here, they don't have status, and because they haven't registered under the law, well, they're going to be prosecuted. And
What does that mean, register under the law?
you basically
Exactly.
have to go to DHS's website
Yeah.
and say that you're
I'm here.
unlawfully. Yeah.
Damn.
Man, I'm telling you, man, we're seeing things that, and I told people, I said, man, soon it's going, and when you say the judge, the jury, everything, it's. I told people, I said, man, it's going to come to a point where even just your regular peace officers, I'm telling you, man, we're going to start to see license, registration, proof of insurance, and proof of citizenship.
Yeah.
And if people think, that's not going to happen, look at the last 90 days.
Yeah.
Look at the first 100
So
days.
true.
Listen, California is different, but a lot of states, they're mandating that peace officers do that. They're saying you got to comply with immigration authorities. You got to turn people over, and really, it's really in California, there's some counties that are already doing that, right? Maybe not LA County, right? But you have some of these counties in the Inland Empire where you have sheriffs there, and they're saying, listen, like, we are going to do everything we can to remove people who don't belong in this country and are here unlawfully.
And you know what's wild? You'll see people say a broad stroke, like, yeah, well, the criminals and I'm like, man, it's family people now. It's people that go to, universities, taxpayers, and it's crazy that you're worried about, and you should be. I mean, we go to other countries and we have to do everything. If I go somewhere, I got to get a visa. If I do this, I got to do that. I got to tell them how long I'm here, and the same thing applies here, but then you go with this broad stroke about how bad this is and the reason why you're deporting people and criminals and so on and so forth, and then you let over 1,000 criminals out. You know what I'm saying? From the resurrection, which is crazy to me. That, and then you get the Tate brothers over it. Like, you're bringing, and you got what, 34 felonies yourself? Like, you are literally bringing criminals here. But your main thing is you're saying you're getting rid of.
And what about the gold card? Basically,
my God,
you're
man.
buying U.S. citizenship. Doesn't matter. You can be some Russian oligarch. It doesn't matter what you've done and who you've done it to. If you got $5 million, here you go. You're automatic U.S. citizenship.
Did you see him showing the gold card when he was on his flight? I'm like, this is really happening right now.
It really is. And, people said, listen, man, he's just saying these things, but our immigration system is completely overhauled. So this is advice, whether it's Ani or anyone else, if you are a green card holder, or do what you can to get your citizenship. This is the time to do it.
What about the people that's afraid to pop up right now too, Neama?
Listen, I get it. If you have no status, I totally understand. Talk to an immigration lawyer.
Like, you're bringing attention to yourself.
See if you can get it through some family member. But yeah, if you have status, make sure to solidify that status. Make it permanent, because we've talked about it. You can be a green card holder. Something happens. You're arrested, convicted of a crime. You're out of this
chances
country.
are gone. Even with DACA students, like, I'm a DACA recipient, right? I'm a dreamer. And just living like that my whole life has been obviously, scared of a lot. Like, we've been in the process of, like, deportation notices already, and then my parents, and then finally, getting citizenship and stuff like that. But man, those are crazy years. I just remembered how scared we were and moving from house to house because we figured they knew where we lived, and going through immigration lawyers who lied to us and put us in these situations where it was going to go nowhere. They just needed money. But like, now it feels like it's literally, I'm feeling the same way as we did like years ago.
Yeah, but this is steroids, right?
Yeah,
here.
this is like totally on steroids. But for those dreamers out there, what can dreamers or DACA recipients really do?
It's hard, you know. Look, there were reports this week of federal agents going to LA schools.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I saw that. They got denied, right?
They got denied. But look, man, if they're going after kids, they're going after dreamers, they're going to go after everyone, right? So I wish I had the answer, but this is not a good time to be an immigrant in this country without status.
Wow.
Damn. All righty. Menendez Brothers. Are the Menendez Brothers coming home?
We're going to know real soon. Real soon. No, but my prediction is probably yes.
Right.
So
within 5 years?
I think within 5 months.
Damn.
So here's what's going on. There's really three things going on with the Menendez brothers at the same time. The first, which is the least likely to succeed, is their habeas petition. So they filed a motion saying that because the evidence of sex abuse didn't really come into the second trial, the jury couldn't consider it, and that they were acting in self-defense. Basically, there was a legal error. There was a constitutional violation. The problem with the self-defense argument is you really have to be at imminent risk of death or serious bodily injury to use deadly force under California law.
Like at that moment?
At that moment,
Right.
yeah. So if your parents are watching TV, eating ice cream,
Right.
you know, and shooting them in the back of the head,
Yeah.
it doesn't really qualify. So I think that's not going to work. Then you have the easiest path is Governor Gavin Newsom just commuting their sentence, right? Pardoning them. That's his absolute right. He can do that at any time. And he's considering it because he asked for an evaluation whether they pose an unreasonable risk to the public. So that's happening behind the scenes. And I think ultimately it will be his decision. But what everyone is talking about is the third thing, which is the resentencing request.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something the former DA, George Gascon, he initiated, right? This is when he was in the middle of that really highly contested election with Nathan Hochman, who ended up winning and is the new DA. He said, listen, I think the brothers should be resentenced in the interest of justice. And their sentence should go from life without the possibility of parole to life with the possibility of parole. He wanted them sentenced to 25 years for each of them, so 50 to life. But because they were youthful offenders, so under California law, if you commit a crime when you're young, late teens, early 20s, you're actually eligible for parole after you serve half the sentence. So they're eligible for parole potentially after serving 25 years. They've served 35 years.
Yeah.
But here's what we got to know about the parole board in California. I think the brothers will be resentenced to life with a possibility of parole. They're going to go before the parole board. Parole board's backed up about 6 months right now. But ultimately, regardless of what the parole board recommends, they be released, they stay in custody, Governor Newsom has the ultimate say. He can reject or approve the parole board's recommendation. So this is all going to come down to the governor. And we know the governor is looking to run for president in 4 years.
What does that look like for him, though? Because, I mean, and you can always say, man, he's going to piss off half the people, you know? Like,
listen, man, I was waiting outside the studio and just talking about Menendez because this is happening right now. And a lot of people think that they're victims of sex abuse. I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, their father, Jose, abused them. Their mother, Kitty, was complicit, and they should be released. The Netflix series Monsters really brought a lot of attention to this.
Do you think that the sign of the times, too? Because, with Monsters on Netflix, and then there's these other, you know, you see them on TikTok, you know, like there's things now that point your attention in a different direction now. And I think that's what people are starting to see as well. Like the court of public opinion is weighing heavy too.
Oh, completely. And look, every prosecutor is elected or appointed by someone who is, right? Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, man, this is all political. I'm not saying they shouldn't be released. I think the just result is for them to be released. But when you have a DA who makes a decision right before an election, right? And now that's George Gascon. Now you have Nathan Hochman who comes in as, I'm not going to be soft on crime. Yeah. And I just lost the A$AP Rocky case. The second big thing I'm going to do is not going to be releasing the Menendez brothers, you know? So he's opposing it. So it's really going to come down to the judge. What is the judge going to do, especially when the former DA said, yeah, the new DA saying no, you know, what's going to happen?
And Gascon was like, did they steal over $800 worth of merchandise? Like, well, let them out. You know what I'm saying? Wow. He was like, man, this is murder. Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't have those in my notes. I had it in my notes. Soulja Boy verdict.
Big verdict for us.
Yeah, so this is
our case.
Yeah, man. So for those that don't know, give us a backstory. So Soulja Boy, and for one, this is already like a $4 million case. But give us the backstory on the sexual assault and everything.
So Soulja Boy beat and sexually assaulted two different women. Mm-hmm. We represent both of them. The cases were consolidated. But at the 11th hour, they filed a motion to sever, which means to separate the cases. So the first case went to trial, and the jury returned a $4.25 million verdict.
And this is an assistant?
This was an assistant that became a girlfriend.
Right.
And the other victim is the mother of his child. So, and, you know, they're Jane Does in California. A lot of people know who these people are. I'm not going to name them to protect them. But, yeah, man, savagely beat and raped his assistant. And we presented the case to the jury. He called her a liar, said that this is a disgruntled ex who was jealous and just kind of making all this up. But the evidence didn't lie. The jury saw right through it, and they returned a verdict pretty quickly.
And this is a civil case,
It's
correct?
a civil case, yeah.
Because I know with Soulja Boy, he said, I was never charged or convicted of this criminally.
Well, we know, was George Gascon charging anyone?
Oh, damn, this is Gascon. Oh.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So this is the George Gascon. And look, maybe Nathan Hochman is going to take another look at this case. But, yeah, you can't say that I wasn't charged because George Gascon was basically a defense lawyer. You know, he wasn't charging anyone with anything. So I don't think that means a whole lot. Obviously, I'm a former prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times prosecuitors, they don't want to take the tough cases, right?
Right.
You know, when you have someone in a domestic violence relationship, how many of those cases are really prosecuted?
But how could Gascon or just the DA, how could they not pick up a case that seemed like it's like severe enough that we can go and see this on criminally, there's nothing happening. But you can go and see the civil lawsuit, you know?
I'm going to tell you why, Big, because when it comes to these types of relationships, whether it's physical or sexual assault, oftentimes people think, well, why did the person stay?
Right.
You
yeah,
know?
we blame the victim.
Yeah, you blame the victim, man. And then, you know, why are they raising the allegations now? Let's not forget, no one believed Cassie Ventura until we all saw that video.
Right.
They thought, listen, this is an ex. She's just trying to shake down a rich and famous celebrity. You know, she was with him for a decade. You know, our victim was with Soulja for quite some time as well. People don't believe victims when they come out and tell their story. That's why so many victims are hesitant to do so. I got to tell you, you know, we have cases against Kanye, Lizzo, Soulja Boy. I mean, so many celebrities, right? There's probably 5 or 10 times more victims that will come to me or our firm, and ultimately they decide not to do it. They're scared. They don't want their name being dragged through the mud. They don't want to be attacked on social media. Because that's what people do to victims. And that's why so many of them are hesitant to come forward, and that's why so few abusers are brought to justice.
Now, Diddy's about to go to court. Is it next month? I think his trial started in May.
May
yeah.
5th, yeah.
Right.
So,
what do you see? And that's another one. In the court of public opinion, people say, "Oh, Diddy's done." You know, everything either is a joke. You know, of course we saw the video with Cassie, but do you think that it's going to be a different twist when they go to court?
it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Diddy because we're going to have 3 victims testify. We know the first one, of course, is Cassie Ventura.
Yeah, she says she's showing up.
So I think with Diddy, one thing that makes it unique is we got a lot of video, right? You know, and I'm not just talking about the surveillance video that we all seen. He reportedly videotaped these freak-offs, right?
Have you seen any of those?
I haven't, you know, but
I think you have, Neema.
I got some on my phone right now.
Right. But so you haven't seen anything, or you can't say.
No, I haven't seen them.
Okay, gotcha.
I haven't seen them, but I've talked to people who have seen them.
Really?
And look, when they raided his home here in LA and Miami, they were going for the electronic data. They're going for the servers, right? The cell phones, the iPads. So I know that this evidence exists. And Diddy did it for 2 reasons, reportedly. One, for his own sexual pleasure. That's what Cassie said. I believe her. And the second is to keep control over the other participants.
Is
right?
that illegal, though, for me to have a freak off and have people at my house and we do whatever? Is that illegal?
There's nothing illegal about it as long as they're adults
Right.
and they're consenting. You can be as freaky as you want, babe.
Thank you.
But what makes it illegal and what makes it sex trafficking is force, fraud, or coercion. So the victims are saying, listen, I was drugged. I couldn't consent.
leave.
Yeah, I couldn't leave.
Yeah.
You know, he's got all sorts of firearms and weapons and everything. He's got his entourage of security. So it's that force, that coercion.
The intimidation.
That's what makes it illegal.
Wow.
So
Gotcha.
What about the videotaping? Does that make it illegal, or is it legal because it's his house?
if they consent,
Gotcha.
you can videotape and, you know, make your own home video porn,
Gotcha,
you know,
yeah.
totally fine. You know, it's going to come down to consent. So that trial, the defense is going to be all about cross-examination. They're going to go after the victims and saying, listen, man, you sued for, you know, tens of millions of dollars. You got paid. This is just about money. You know, you're not happy because we broke up. You moved on. This is all fabricated. So you're going to see the defense go after those victims very, very aggressively.
I got to ask you something, too, because you're starting to see, I see this a lot on my feed, and we see this a lot because everyone has this device and everyone's recording. I see people that they'll record something, right? And they're like, oh, you can't record me in public. That's against the law. You can't record me in public. What is the law when it comes to recording someone in public?
You can absolutely record someone in public. Whoever tells you that does not know the law. You can record a civilian. You can record police officers. That is the law. Now, if it's a private space, you can't obviously eavesdrop, send a drone over someone's house, record that. But it's really, do you have an expectation of privacy? That's the question. If you're on a street, you have absolutely no expectation of privacy. You can record someone. Now, listen, I can't record you and, big and use it in my commercial without your consent. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't misappropriate someone's, name, image, or likeness for a commercial. But to record someone, that is absolutely legal in any public space.
Damn, that's crazy because it's even starting to get crazier. People going into restaurants and, they're just recording people and getting, can you leave? Can you leave? Even when you see prank videos or someone that's just standing there and being a complete asshole. And, I'm standing right here, so public, you can't. And I always see people say, oh, you can't record me. And they're like, yes, I can. Yes, I can.
You absolutely can.
What about if a police officer pull you over and you're recorded and they ask you to turn your phone off?
Well, that's unlawful. Right. So, peace officers, especially in most jurisdictions, should have their body cam on the whole time. They should be recording themselves. So tell him or her that's unlawful. I have an absolute right to record. Now, you can't interfere with the investigation, right?
They always say that. You're not doing anything.
We're doing an investigation.
Well, but you can't get up in there, but you can absolutely record from a distance as long as it is not interfering with it. You can't, like I said, get between, an officer and a suspect or do that. But as long as you're recording from a distance, you can absolutely do that. That's protected.
I feel like they always go to that point where you're recording them for so long, you're just standing there, and then you're going to interfere, and you're interfering in an investigation. Like, that's just a go-to, even though you're not doing anything.
Right.
And then that's when you see get physical, and you just get arrested. And
police officers say all sorts of things. People don't understand the law. So know your rights, and stick up for yourself.
Yeah, there's a site that I follow, a page called, I think it's Always Film the Police. Yeah, man. And Mr. Checkpoint.
Oh, yeah.
The Mr. Checkpoint. The Mr. Checkpoint, I love you. And they keep people on deck, and they'll let you know, like, no, you can. You can record this. Because I see a lot of times when, there's an officer that said you got to turn that off.
I saw one guy, I don't know if this is possible. Can you do a citizen's arrest on a cop? Like, he was following this cop that wasn't turning the signals on, passed through a stop sign, and then he pulled him over. And he told him he wanted to put him on citizen's arrest.
Yeah, citizen's arrest.
I was like, that can happen, bro.
It's for felonies, so you can't do a citizen's arrest for traffic. Yeah, for a traffic.
So I can't just announce it. All right, so I can take my cape and put it up there. Yeah, I definitely was going to do that. Luigi Mangione.
Oh, Luigi.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Hey, man, this is like, it's crazy because there's so many. I was at a mall, and they were selling T-shirts with his image on it.
Wow.
And it's wild because there's so many people that take him as a hero and others that take him as a villain. But it's wild because for whatever reason, to me, he's a murderer.
Listen, man, he is a murderer. We've all seen the video, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he executed that man. But Big, I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen an accused murderer with this much support.
Right.
Never. And it's not even like OJ because people, really didn't like LAPD. People love Luigi Mangione. You're talking about social media. Free Luigi is one of the biggest hashtags you'll see right now.
I know I got to put it under my videos now. I got it on my West Coast. Trial lawyers know.
Tell me, man, we'll get tons of traffic. Look, he's a good-looking guy. He's rich. He's smart. All that stuff. And he's got way more fans.
I think the looks help too.
Of course.
Yeah. People were zooming in on his eyes, and I was like, if it was me, they would have been like, lock him up, lock him up.
No, man, that's the reality, man. The looks definitely help. But a lot of it is who his victim was, right? We've all, I don't care what kind of health insurance you have, the greatest PPO in the world, you have Medi-Cal, you got Medicare. We've all been frustrated with the health insurance system, right? Claims getting denied, can't get the treatment. Look, health insurance and just, medicine in this country is an absolute mess. Obviously, look, not an excuse to kill someone. execute. I mean, that guy was a father.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
He had kids, but I think that trial, and by the way, the big news there is, talk about the feds and the Trump administration, they're seeking the death penalty for him, which is something that you don't typically see, where the feds are prosecuting a case that the Manhattan DA's office is already prosecuting. They don't have the death penalty in New York, so the feds stepped in and said, listen, we're taking over, and we're going to try to put him to death, that's a new development. But in that case, Big, I think there is a very real possibility of jury nullification. And let me tell folks that, So jury nullification is, we think the guy did it, but we're not going to convict him. We're going to vote not guilty. Because if you look online, like 10 to 20% of people believe that he was justified in what he did. And you need 12 out of 12 jurors, right? So one juror, that's about 8%. So I wouldn't be surprised if you get a holdout juror in that case.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what does a holdout juror mean?
Yeah,
What does
so-
that
That's
get?
it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So different types of cases, you need a different number of jurors. So like in a civil case, right, in the Soulja Boy case, in California, you need 9 out of 12, right?
Oh,
but
okay.
for a criminal
Just
case,
say yes or no.
to say yes or no.
To
Yeah,
get
to
the
return a
result.
verdict. It doesn't
Gotcha.
have to be unanimous,
Gotcha,
right?
Gotcha.
But in a criminal case, you need 12 out of 12 jurors. If one juror says, I don't think he's guilty, you have a hung jury. And in this particular case, I would not be surprised if there's one or maybe more jurors that say, hey, I think he did it, but I'm not going to put this guy away, and I'm certainly not going to put him on death row.
All it takes is one person to come in who dental insurance was
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah.
Come in with a toothache. You like, man, I'm sending this motherfucker home.
Yeah.
This hurt.
Yeah. Didn't pay for my implant,
Yeah. Hey, man, did Trump get shot in his ear? Have you seen these conspiracy theories?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. Look, man.
I think there's too many people to play a role
Yeah.
if this is a conspiracy.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of people. You're really playing with fire there. Someone, people got shot, right?
Yeah.
Real people got shot, so, and people passed. So I love a conspiracy theory like anyone else, but I think it really was an attempted assassination.
Yeah, it's a lot of role playing. What, Ani?
I'm just saying, Twitter really, TikTok thinks that it was fake because the way he popped back up after, they're like, but where is everything? Like, where's Scar?
Yeah.
A lot of people think and going back to TikTok, a lot of people think on TikTok, Mangione was framed. Like none of that evidence. The video was doctored. It's like the
Lord.
man on the moon, So
They think that it was doctored.
yeah.
So
Deep fake.
So there's a dead father. Who shot him?
He's being framed. People,
Right.
Again, I'm not saying.
Yeah, I know
believe
you're
in
not.
it,
I
But
know you're
people
not.
think that this is a setup and he's being framed and he's actually innocent. Yeah.
All right. It's too much, man.
Yeah.
I got 2 kids. My son is 18. My daughter's 16. I got to continue raising these kids, man. It's just so many, it's so many rabbit holes. I can't go down all of them. It's a lot of rabbit holes. What else do we have to look out for, man?
The other kind of big case that's coming up, people are talking about, is Brian Koberger. I don't know if you follow that.
Talk to me.
Yeah, so that's a big one. He is the one who's accused of killing those 4 University of Idaho students.
Yeah.
Bad, sad case. So that's going to be an interesting case because he was pretty careful. This is someone that, was getting his PhD in criminal justice. He had written about crime scenes. So he left a pretty clean crime scene except for one single source of DNA on a knife sheath. So it's going to be an interesting case. That case is coming up in August. We got, obviously, Diddy in May. So it's going to be busy for folks who like true crime and following these types of cases. And obviously, look, the Supreme Court's going to be dealing with Trump and immigration and tariffs and education and everything, transgender rights. There's just a lot happening right now in the world of law.
Do you have a podcast, Neema?
We do. It's called LA Legal. We go back through, serial killers and some famous criminal. We do like a deep dive and an analysis, right?
And what is it called?
It's called LA Legal.
Man, yeah, bro. That's why I bring you in too. My numbers with you just shoot through the roof. No, just
People love true crime, baby.
oh my
I'm
god,
telling
dude,
you.
that's all I watch is true crime and listen to true crime, and all I watch are documentaries.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so Koberger is a big one, man. You know, this guy was smart, turned off his phone when he went to the scene. They got pretty lucky that they got a video of a white Hyundai Elantra, and they spent months. Here's the thing right now, for people that like true crime. technology has changed the game, right? Obviously, you know,
Oh, yeah.
we're a little bit older, but, you know, when I was a kid growing up in Southern California, everyone was terrified of the Night Stalker,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
You know?
Remember crime went down?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody thought like he was coming into your house.
Everyone, we were terrified, right? The Night Stalker got caught because of a thumbprint on a car. Law enforcement got lucky. Nowadays, man, you can't, you know, kill a bunch of people with video surveillance everywhere and cell phone technology
God,
and Big
man.
Brother watching, man, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone knows where everyone is. So you're not going to have serial killers right now. So the fact that you have someone like Koberger who was able to allegedly kill 4 people, and it took them months and months and just a massive manhunt to find out who he was, you're not going to see cases like that because usually people aren't that careful, aren't that sophisticated, and law enforcement has an advantage when it comes to technology.
What do you feel about how so much surveillance is going up in neighborhoods now? What is it? Southgate that I'm thinking? No, not Southgate. It was some area that just put up cameras, like AI cameras, and they always say it's for your security.
I think I know people were talking about Cheviot Hills in LA.
It's not Cheviot, but yeah, and Cheviot Hills, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it's like you go under the guise of, you know, security, you know, but then it's like, you know, what's the capabilities of the zoom in, and if there's audio, like everything is under surveillance right now.
It is, you know, vehicles driving by, you know, you're speeding, you know, next thing you know, you're getting a ticket, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's video surveillance
Dude,
everywhere.
I literally was at a store, parking lot, parked far away. I went to go burn up a Tesla, right? As soon as I got near it, it's a recording. I had, I'm just bullshitting. Yeah. But yeah, everything is under surveillance now.
Oh, no
Everything,
question.
bro.
You know, your car, like you're talking about those Teslas, man, they record everything.
Yeah.
They got 4 cameras, you know.
Yeah.
You get a ton of information from them.
And
look,
you go close to one, it's like, hey, get away from my car. Oh, you know, that's my Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? Can you get away from my car?
well, we're talking about your $70,000 iPhone, man.
Yeah.
That thing, that's a treasure trove of information. It knows everything about you. All your dirty secrets, starts feeding you ads based on
man.
your history. And again, we talk about the fine print. No one goes through and, you know, unchecks all the privacy stuff. You're just constantly given information in these big
And you say
companies.
you're a lawyer and you don't even read it
I
all.
don't know who has time for that,
That's
man.
crazy, man.
It's too much, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, privacy rights out the door. Data, you know, is everything right now. People are just buying data so they can market to you, right?
Do you do like the Face ID?
I do the Face ID.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
lazy, man, like everyone else, you know?
Yeah,
Trying
tell
to
me
save
about it.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. All righty. Well, Neema, thank you for coming into the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
man.
I was hoping you would say no so I could turn mine off.
Yeah.
You know, hey
Same.
man, every time you come in, and Neema, you've sat with us many a times. There is not one thing we throw at you where you're like, I don't know. Yeah.
I'm a nerd, man. I'm on TV. I got to be ready, you know? CNN, Fox, whatever it is, you know? So they throw it at me. I got to be ready for all these legal cases.
Man, I
That's what
can't
do.
wait till we start our podcast together.
Yes.
This is going to be major, bro.
Cute.
Let's do it, man. You want to talk about any legal case? I'm your guy.
Yeah, hell. I'm about to turn this into like a weekly, or
Yeah.
we're gonna sit down. We're gonna get a new set though. We're gonna get a set, and we're gonna bring people in, and even some of the stars that we know that have cases, I'll bring them on with us. You know what I'm saying? And tell them like, hey man, Neema said you should probably just pay this one out.
Wow.
You know what I'm
man.
saying?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey man, Jason, our producer over there, like genius. I'm writing it down now. Man, but thank you once again, Neema,
Listen,
for
man,
coming
I
into
was
the neighborhood.
outside. I was giving legal advice to Molly. You know, she had a case. So, man, I'm here to help.
Hey man, yeah, and you see, there's sometimes I just hit you on the side, like, hey man, my sister crashed. What should I do here? You know, but no, thank you for coming into the neighborhood once
course,
again,
man.
man.
Thanks for having
and
me.
how can they get in touch with you? We all know West Coast Trial Lawyers.
Yeah,
I know that.
westcoasttriallawyers.com, every social media platform, 888-888-WCTL. That's West Coast Trial Lawyers. We're here to help. You got a
Man.
legal question, give us a call.
Thank you, man. You are beyond wise, brother.
Thanks, man.
Neama
Appreciate it.
Rahmani in the neighborhood, Big Boys neighborhood.